Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to make the popular Olson Face Mask with a filter pocket. You'll need the pattern, which is in the description box below. You'll need some 100% cotton fabric, a sewing machine with thread, pins, and scissors, a cutting mat and ruler, a rotary blade, t-shirt strips or elastic for the ties, a 1/4 inch sewing foot, and some twist ties for the nose bridge. So let's go ahead and get started. I began making these masks back in March of this year, and I quickly wore out the paper templates. So I decided to make myself a more robust set out of cardstock. I imported the pattern into my cutting machine program, cut myself 4 pieces of cardstock for each of the templates, and just glued them together. So you can see this gives me a nice thick template, and this will make it easy for the rotary blade to run across that edge. I also used some masking tape and just cut a strip, just wrapped it around itself and stuck it to the back of the template. This will give me a nice light adhesion to the fabric without any residue. 100% cotton is preferred for these masks. Go ahead and pre-wash your fabric, that way if there's any shrinkage that will be taken care of. Then what you'll do is fold the fabric right sides together. And then I'm just going to lay the face piece or the face template down first. And I like to match up the face fabric with the cheek fabric. So now I'm using a rotary cutter to cut out the pieces of the fabric, and I love this rotating cutting mat. And then I've also spoken about this rotary blade before. I like that it's a pressure sensitive blade so that the blade is only exposed when I'm applying the pressure to it, so it's a nice safety feature. So I cut out the main face piece, and now this is the cheeks. So you'll need a right and a left for those. And the final piece to cut will be the mouthpiece that goes on the inside of the mask. You can see how easily that rotary blade just rides along the edge of those templates. Alright, so all those pieces are ready, and let me show you how it goes together really quickly. So you've got the face piece, then you've got the inner mouthpiece, and then you have the cheek parts. So back in March of this year, when I began making these masks, elastic was in really short supply. I was making these masks mostly for donation and for family and friends. And I saw this tip about using t-shirt material as an alternative to elastic. So just fold a t-shirt in half and then cut at 1-inch strips. And you can see you get a nice long length from one t-shirt. Then I'm just going to cut off the edge to open up that loop, and then I cut at 8-inch strips. When you pull these strips on either end, you can see it almost becomes a cord. It's got a nice elastic feel to it. You don't have to worry about fraying, and then you can cut it down to size. And this allows the wearer of the mask to adjust the ties to fit them perfectly. So it's a nice alternative to elastic. So while sewing this mask together, I would like to maintain a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I find this foot to be very helpful. It has like a little barrier on the right hand side, and you just let the fabric line up against that, and that way you'll maintain that perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance around your mask. So I'll begin with the face piece. And these are curved, and that's another reason I like the 1/4 inch foot, because I can just ride that fabric all the way around that. So you can see how smoothly that just rides around that 1/4 inch foot. Next we'll do the inner mouthpiece, and that's going to be the exact same seam. And now you need to seal off these edges. You don't want them to fray. So what I like to do is just fold them back on themselves and close that seam, and then I stitch right down the center of that fold. If you have a serger, this is also very helpful here. You could just serge right down that seam, and that would save you this step right here. And you'll do that on both sides. And that's the inside mouthpiece complete. Typically I would use matching thread. I wanted to use a darker thread just so I could show you what the seams look like. Now we're going to do the cheek part, and on the long edge of that you want to do the exact same process you just did on the mouthpiece. Just double fold that seam and then stitch down the center. So you'll do that for both of the cheek pieces. So next I'm going to attach the cheek part to the face part. It can be very easy to make a mistake here, so let me show you what is the wrong way first. You can see when I line that top piece up, the edges don't match, so I know that that's not the correct piece. This is what it should look like. The edge should line up perfectly, and so should the top seam and the bottom seam. So there you go, that's what it's supposed to look like. And then I'll just put a 1/4 inch seam on the very edge of this. And there's no need to backstitch on any of these seams at this point, and you'll see later on when we attach all the pieces together, we'll lock all the seams. So here's the other side of the cheek, and you can see that that lines up perfectly. So that's just something that you do need to pay attention to. All right, so those seams are all put together, so you can see how quickly this is all coming together. Now when we folded over those seams, it created a little bit of excess fabric. So go ahead and trim those off, and that should line up perfectly to the face piece of the fabric. So we're going to take the face piece and attach the mouthpiece to this, or the inner part of the mouth. So this will be done with the right sides of the fabric facing each other. So make sure you have it aligned correctly, that the shapes match up perfectly. And then what I like to do is use opposing seams, as they say. So if I take like the, you can see here the mouthpiece, I'll move that seam to face the left of the screen, and then the other side will face the right. And I'm just going to pin that in place. And then follow that seam all the way down to the bottom and do the exact same thing on the bottom. And this will help your seams lie nice and flat. And this is where that 1/4 inch foot came in very handy, because I know that those seams are exactly the same size, and it will give me a much better match. And then just lay that cheek piece over and make sure that it overlaps the mouthpiece. And you can see how well this is just all coming together here. It lines up perfectly. You can use pins or clips, whatever you prefer, to hold these seams in place. And like I said, the most critical part of this is that the cheeks overlay the mouthpiece. All right, so that's all pinned, and I'll do a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the entire mask. Alright, so there's the mask with the 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. It looks nice and neat. Now before you turn this right side out, it's a good idea to go ahead and snip off that excess fabric on the corner. Just make sure that you don't snip into the seam line. If you wanted to put a couple of snips around the nose area, you could do that also. Okay, so I've trimmed off the corners and all the excess threads. Now it's time to turn this right side out. I just use the chopstick to get those corners poked out and nice and square. I really do like this mask design. It fits very nicely on my face. I like the fact that you can put a filter in there if you like, and that all the seams are enclosed in this one. It's really a nice design. Alright, so that's all turned right side out. So let's have a look and see how well I did matching up both those seams. There's the top part. That looks pretty good. That's a good match. And the same on the bottom. So I've given the mask a good press. And doesn't that look nice? It looks nice and sharp. Now the next step is to put a top stitch all the way around it. So I'm going to take off the 1/4 inch foot and I'm just going to put a general purpose foot on there. Now my goal is to do about a 1/16 or a 1/8 of an inch top stitch all the way around. So I just pick a point on this foot and then I line that up against the edge of the fabric and just follow that around the entire mask. Now we're going to make the casing for the straps. So I've just folded over the edge of the mask, probably about 1/2 inch, something like that. And I'm just going to start my stitch and then do a back stitch to secure that edge, stitch all the way down, and then back stitch at the bottom. And that way it should be nice and secure. And we'll do the exact same thing to the other side. So just fold over that 1/2 inch, go ahead and do a few stitches and then a back stitch. I had purchased this tool several years ago, and I believe it was for when I was making handbag straps. You could turn them right side out, but it works perfectly for pulling these t-shirt ties through the channels. You could see how easily that came through. A small crochet hook would serve the same purpose. Now this length of t-shirt tie is perfect for someone who is wearing it around the ear. They can go ahead and get a great custom fit just by tying one side, then putting it on your face and then tying the other side. You can trim away those edges if you like, or what I'd like to do is just pull that whole situation right up to the top there. You could even pull those extra lengths into the channel if you wanted to. And the reason I don't cut them away is because after a few washes, it may end up being a bit loose, so you may need to readjust those. And there you can see there's the pocket where you could put your filter material, or you could use a paper towel. Just make sure that you do remove that before you put it in the washing machine. Now you could leave your mask just like this, or if you wanted a bit more security with your mask, you can add a flexible piece of material over the bridge of the nose, and that will fit better against your face and then underneath your eyes. So let me show you how to do that. I'll be using a twist tie as my material. You do need something that is flexible. Some people use pipe cleaners. You just fold a pipe cleaner in half and then twist it together. But I like this one. It seems to be a bit more comfortable for me. So what we'll need to do is make a channel across the top part of the face mask, and just use the inner part of the face mask as a guide. And then I rest my presser foot against the edge of the top stitch that I made, and just follow that all the way across that face piece, and that will create the channel for the twist tie. Just make sure you do a back stitch at the beginning and the end of this row. So there you can see we've got the channel stitched in place, and it's a little bit bigger than the material that we'll be threading through there, but not too big to where it will fall out easily. That can be a little bit challenging getting it across that seam in the center of the mask, but just persevere and you should be able to slide that into place. So there you go. So now you can bend that or mold it over the top part of your nose and get a nice custom fit all the way under your eyes. I hope you liked this video tutorial. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, I hope you choose to do so. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified of future videos. Thanks for watching.